I think one of the most important learnings that I got from this Ironman journey or exercising is the importance of recovery. I think recovery is hugely underestimated in our business life, work life in general. People don't sleep enough. They don't eat well. They just don't put any importance on these things. And I had to learn the hard way through my exercise that without recovery and without proper fueling, your body's just not going to perform.
Welcome to On Record PR. I'm the executive producer and guest host, Jennifer Simpson Carr. Today, I'm excited to go on record with Marie-Cristine Kaptan, an associate at Bär Karrer. Marie specializes in corporate governance and legal ESG matters. She is also an Ironman athlete, most recently competing in and finishing the Ironman World Group Championship race in 2023. Welcome to the show, Marie.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the kind introduction. I am so pleased to be here and excited to speak with you.
Wonderful. You're joining us today from Zurich?
Yeah, that's correct.
Wonderful. Well, I'm thrilled to be speaking with you, and I have so many questions about the balance between your legal practice and your athletic career. So we're just going to dive right in. You are a lawyer at one of the leading Swiss law firms, a Stanford MBA, and an Ironman athlete. Can you tell our listeners about your journey to becoming a lawyer and an Ironman athlete?
Yeah, of course. So interestingly, both actually started with sort of a fascination. And I'll start maybe with the journey to becoming a lawyer, because that was first, many years before I started even thinking about doing an Ironman ever. And I think growing up, I just always had this image of lawyers, especially female lawyers, to be this strong, fierce person, standing up for other people, being also respected in society, and kind of just helping society become a more just place. And I had this vision of, if you become a lawyer, you made something out of yourself. Maybe that's, something that just is the image that society has of lawyers, or maybe it's from what I experienced as a kid, given how my parents spoke about lawyers, that I don't really know, but I kind of always knew that I wanted to become a lawyer. So this has been there, this fascination, for a very long time. So after finishing high school, it was no question for me that I wanted to go to law school, which I did, even though most of my peers actually thought, oh, this is so dry and I don't know how you can do that. But for me, it was clear that I wanted to become a lawyer. And fortunately, I was pretty good during my studies, and I realized that this is something that I can, probably or hopefully become good at. After law school, my first job at a law firm was, or let's say after really becoming a lawyer. So in Switzerland, you have this complicated procedure where you finish law school, but then you go through an intense period of completing a bar exam. After having done that, my first job was in litigation. So that means you go to court, you present your client's cases, and you argue, you fight all the time about stuff. And I just realized that this is not so much for me, because I don't like fighting all the time. And I was much more interested in the business aspect of things. I always, or also thought about maybe pursuing a second degree in business so that I could better advise companies in things that they do that are more productive, because they want to develop, they have a strategy, they want to do some sort of transaction. And that's when I decided to quit the litigation practice. And I applied for an MBA at Stanford, which I would never have thought that I could ever get in, but it happened. And that was a really 10-year dream come true. And so I was extremely happy and grateful to be able to go to Stanford and complete my MBA there. And that's where my Ironman journey started, or triathlon journey, I should say. I had witnessed my first Ironman in Zurich a couple of years before I actually went to Stanford. And that was just when this spark was ignited, because I saw these athletes and I could not believe what I saw. I was in complete disbelief what these people were doing. And I didn't even go as far as thinking about doing something like that myself. I was just in awe. And so the next year I went to go volunteer at the Ironman that happened in Zurich. And so I got myself into this a little bit more. I stood there at the course, handed bottles to the bikers who came through, and still I didn't think about doing something like that myself. I was just fascinated with it. And then at Stanford, I had friends who had completed triathlons or half Ironman before. And in terms of climate, Stanford is the perfect place to start a sport like that because of the weather. You can go biking all year round, basically. And you have a pool outside. And so conditions are very favorable. And so I thought, why not just try and dip my foot into this a little bit and see what happens, see if I like it. And then I signed up. Maybe it was a little bit of peer pressure, I don't know, but we signed up together for a half Ironman in California. And that would have happened right when COVID hit. And so the race didn't happen. But I had purchased my first bike, my first road bike, just a month before. And so I just kept biking and training. And a year later, the first race that happened again after COVID was a half Ironman in Hawaii, in Kona. And so by that point, I had heard about the Kona race and had educated myself a little bit and knew that it was a very famous place. And so I thought, this is now, at the end of my MBA experience, my chance to try a half Ironman once in my life. And if that can be in Kona, that's awesome, right? And so I signed up. I went there. I was terrified. Somehow I got through it, and I was just, I was so happy not to have drowned and to get out of that swim that I was just smiling for the entire rest of the day. And it was still quite a long day, or half a day for me, because I was very slow. I was not well prepared, to be fair. And I finished it. And that was already a huge achievement, and something that a few months ago I wouldn't have thought was possible. After the MBA, I came back to Switzerland and I just continued training, even though I didn't have any particular goals. And it also helped that my husband is in the sport as well. He started at a very similar time as me, maybe a little bit before me, but we kind of got into the sport together. So we signed up together for a training camp. My first training camp ever. I thought it was a good idea to go to Mallorca, one of these Spanish islands here, pretty close to Switzerland, and to just train with other people for a week. And there I was just talked into signing up for a full Ironman. I still kind of thought it was not possible to do something like that. And I don't know what happened during that camp, but at the end, I was signed up for that Ironman 2 months later. I didn't own a triathlon bike, so I just purchased the only bike that was available at that time, because it was still post-COVID. We had these supply chain issues, and there was just one bike available online in my size. I purchased it. I got it 2 months exactly before that Ironman. And then I went there. It was in Hamburg. Still completely not prepared for what was going to happen. But I have this thing that when I sign up for something or I start something, I just finish it. And so, yeah, I completed that Ironman. And I think that's when I decided, okay, I now know I can do it. And the next thing is I want to know if I can get good at it.
That's a beautiful journey. And thank you so much for sharing it with our listeners. What was going through your mind in Kona and in Hamburg when I heard you say that you were nervous and maybe felt not as prepared as you could have been? What was going through your mind during the race to help you keep moving forward and accomplish this great achievement?
So I think it was a little bit different in Kona versus Hamburg because the half distance Ironman is still much more manageable than a full Ironman. So for me, it took a little bit more than 6 hours. And at the end, I had to run a half marathon. I had run a half marathon before, so I knew essentially this is something that I can do because I've done it before. And as I said before, I was just so happy to have gotten through the swim. I couldn't do freestyle. I did the entire thing in breaststroke, which is very unusual for an Ironman competition. It was in the ocean. It was my first ever ocean swim. But I was just so happy to have done that the rest was really, I knew that nothing can happen anymore because during the first part, I was really not sure if I would get out of that water. And afterwards, I knew, okay, I'm not going to die. It's going to be fine. I know I can complete it. In Hamburg, though, that was a marathon at the end. And when you are at the beginning of a marathon, after having been exercising for already about 7 hours, it feels like that's going to be a really long time. And also, I did not fuel. So I did not eat anything during that entire Ironman because I was uneducated. I didn't know how to. I thought I cannot eat while exercising. So by the time the marathon started, I was completely empty. And it was no surprise that after about 2 miles, about 4 or 5 kilometers, I thought I cannot continue. And in Hamburg, I was not alone competing. First of all, my husband competed there as well. It was his first Ironman too. And secondly, one of the main persons who had talked me into doing that Ironman, I met her at that training camp for the first time. She was competing as well. Her name's Maria Fernanda. She's from Ecuador originally. And I saw her at the beginning of that run course in Hamburg. And I was a little bit faster than she was at that point. So I passed her on the way and I told her, Maria, I can't do it. I can't do it. I have to stop. And I seriously believed it at that point. And she said, no, you can do it. You can do it. Just continue. And yeah, seeing her there, continuing and feeling the same kind of pain, that I think was what got me through it, because I kept thinking about those words for the rest of the marathon course. And it was long, like it was a few hours. It's not just 10 more minutes and you're done. It's about 3.5 more hours and then you're done. But during that first Ironman, I think it was her who got me through.
It's wonderful to have people in your life who support and motivate you. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm so happy to hear that you found someone that you have such a connection with in this community. Marie, we're going to pause here for a message from our sponsor. And then when we get back, we'll talk a little bit more about your Ironman competitions and your practice.
This episode is sponsored by Furio Ruble Communications. In the ever-changing business ecosystem, it's crucial for law firms and businesses to maintain a focus on innovation, differentiation, and efficiency to sustain their relevance and competitive edge. Furia Rubel's Stride Services equips domestic and international law firms and businesses to pinpoint obstacles and inefficiencies, distinguish true unique selling propositions, optimize processes, and adjust to shifting client requirements. To learn more about Furia Rubel's Stride Services, visit furiarubel.com/stride.
So, Marie, we're back from our sponsor break, and I'm curious, as an Ironman athlete competing worldwide, how do you balance the demands of a legal career with the rigorous training required? And are there any lessons from your athletic pursuits that you apply to your work as a lawyer or vice versa?
So in terms of balancing the demands of training with my work, there are a few factors that help me do that. And I think the most important one is organization. I really have to organize my week. And usually I do that during the weekend when I get my training plan. I have a coach who writes my training plans, and I see in advance what my training blocks are going to be, or training sessions during the week. And then I just make sure that this aligns with my work schedule. My work schedule is sometimes a little bit chaotic. So I just try to make my schedule work for the week. And then I have to be flexible during the week. So it's very well possible that my work schedule gets in the way of my planned training. And then I just have to be flexible enough to reschedule things and to do the training session maybe at another time. However, also very important is that I kind of have this no compromises approach. There's not even a question if I complete my training session. It's going to be completed no matter what. And I think once you start internally negotiating, do I really want to do it? Do I want to get up at 5 a.m. and go to the pool? You already lost. So when the alarm clock goes, it's not a question. I get up, I do my early morning training. Early mornings, I found, are the best time to get in my most important training session of the day, because that's usually a protected time where I know that neither clients nor my bosses or peers need me or want anything from me immediately. And then I often do a second training session over lunch, also because I know that many people do respect some sort of lunchtime, or they're just busy having their own lunch plans. And then another really important point is that I came to realize over these few years that I've done this, that exercising actually helps me perform better. And so sometimes when I have very long work days, and I get to a point where I feel my concentration decreasing, and I notice that it just takes me longer to complete something, I know that probably if I now take a break and do my exercise afterwards, I'm going to be super sharp again, and I can get back to being efficient. And so for me, exercise and work actually balance each other out quite well, because one makes me better at the other, and vice versa. And in terms of learnings, I think one of the most important learnings that I got from this Ironman journey or exercising is the importance of recovery. I think recovery is hugely underestimated in our business life, work life in general. People don't sleep enough. They don't eat well. They just don't put any importance on these things. And I had to learn the hard way through my exercise that without recovery and without proper fueling, your body's just not going to perform. I see massive differences in my early morning training session, depending on how many hours I slept or what I ate the night before. And so this even led me to some injuries in the past, and now I'm well again, but recovery was not easy. And I think that this also applies to work life. And I don't think that anyone can argue that recovery and fueling are important for your body, but not for your mind. And so I know that, or I've learned through this that also, my work is much better if I'm recovered. And I therefore try avoiding these all-nighters and things like that are still part of business life and big law firm life. And I know also consulting and other industries and sectors, but I think they're really not useful at all. And so if ever possible, I try to incorporate recovery into my work life and exercising life. I think that's really the most important learning.
That's a fantastic lesson that spans personal and professional, and one that is really important. And I completely agree with you that many people don't prioritize that recovery and rest and fueling your body and in a mind and body with positive things. So thank you for sharing that. So Marie, I just want to thank you so much for the great conversation today. I also want to thank our listeners for tuning in today and invite them to visit our website at onrecordpr.com. On that site, you can view the show notes, share the episodes with your friends, and find out all the information that you need. As always, we welcome guests and topic ideas via email to podcast@onrecord.com, and we'll see our listeners again next time.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
On Record PR is produced by Jennifer Simpson Carr and Matt Henderson, with support from the team at Furia Rubel Communications. This episode is edited by Željko Tomic of Compost Media Flow.